Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Parallel Parking. I am Riki, Adriane behind the camera, and today we're joined by our special guest, my friend G! Today we are way up north here in Wisconsin. We're up by Superior, Wisconsin, way up at the very top. We're here at Amnicon Falls State Park. Right now we are at the first of one of the falls kind of right here in this area. It's the Now and Then Falls. As you can tell, it's a little more then and a lot less now. Because apparently during the later summer months, this kind of dies down. So I think maybe later on in the year this will start flowing a little bit more, or maybe towards the beginning of the year it will start up a bit more. But right now it's just kind of someone left the faucet running too long sort of effect. There's other falls that we'll find along the way. There's the lower falls which are kind of down there, but there's also a school bus here right now, so we're trying to kind of avoid the field trip. And then there's the upper falls, and there's also the Snake Pit Falls, right? So we'll be checking all those out. If you'll notice, I'm quite orange today. You can't see Adriane, but she has a bright shirt on as well. I don't know if they're necessarily doing it in this area or not, but it is hunting season here in Wisconsin, and you don't really want to get shot. So if you're going to be out hiking or, trekking to any areas where they are allowed to hunt nearby, you're going to want to make sure to dress brightly colored so as not to get Dick Cheney. So, let's get moving.
The first fall that we came across was the lower falls, which is pretty much right when you get into the park. Most of the falls are pretty close together, so they're easy enough to find. This is the lower falls. There's the bridge right there. As you can see, those are some of the students that were there on a field trip while we were there as well. We tried to avoid them as much as possible, which we did a pretty good job of. After this, we started to try to find some of the other falls as well. But as we started walking on the trails, we realized that the trails were not exactly very clearly defined. So we hoped that that would not become a problem as we started our journey through Amnicon State Park.
So we're on the first trail up to the upper falls. The trails are not really well defined. It's kind of just this, which is gorgeous. It's very nice. Reminds me of a lot of places I used to go camping when I was younger. But I kind of hope we don't get eaten by bears, because there's no real definition as to where the trails are. So if anyone finds this footage after we've been eaten by bears, hope you enjoyed it.
Here at Amnicon, there's a lot of different waterfalls, like we mentioned at the beginning of the video. There's the lower falls, there's the upper falls, the Snake Pit Falls, and the Now and Then Falls. This one, I'm not entirely sure which one it is, because there's so many different waterfalls and they're all pretty close by that it's kind of hard to keep track of all of them, and they're not really clearly marked or anything. I believe the lower falls and the Now and Then Falls had some signs nearby, but everything else is just kind of around. So there's a lot of different waterfalls and lots of cool little flowing rivers and creeks and things like that. All in all, it's a pretty pleasant view as you're hiking. And then we came across this little guy here. This was the most tame, willing to please an audience squirrel I've ever seen. We seriously stood and watched this guy just hang out and eat this pine cone for about 5 minutes before he finally ran off. And we continued down some of these paths, just kind of trying to find our way through here. We never really got lost or anything, even though the paths aren't clearly defined. They're by no means, treacherous to get around or anything. Just not exactly clearly specified as to where the trails go.
This is what I mean by not clearly defined paths. We've kind of just been following what we think are trails. So far they've led to some pretty cool little areas, but again, there's nothing really clearly defined.
Riki, hold up. Keep talking.
And this is definitely one of those parks where it's a good thing you have hiking boots, because there's some pretty steep and rocky little areas that you need to climb around to get into, and if you just had regular flat-soled shoes, it would be really difficult and probably pretty dangerous, especially around the fall area.
after some more hiking, came across a few more falls. This one here, I believe, would be the Snake Pit Falls, if I had to venture a guess, as the water kind of flows off into this little pit area here. Amnicon Falls State Park is definitely great for just getting out and hiking. If you're more into just kind of the hiking trails, as we had stated throughout the video, none of the trails are really clearly marked, but they're by no means difficult to get around, and they're pretty safely and easily navigated. There's great scenery. It's great for photo ops. There's just not a whole lot to film as there are so few falls and they're all pretty close by.
Well, we sort of looped around. Over there, that's the small falls, at least from the lower falls rather. From this angle, over there, there's the covered bridge where we actually crossed over originally after the Now and Then falls. And we've kind of wandered through and looped our way back around. We were actually over there at one point, but that doesn't really go anywhere. It ends right about there. But it looks pretty sweet from this angle. So I don't know if there's more to Amnicon here or not. I think that's pretty much all of it.
Yeah,
that's all the falls, right?
Yeah.
So some pretty cool little falls. As you know, you can tell. Just because they're waterfalls doesn't mean they're always sparkling and pretty. Sometimes they're going to be kind of gross looking because of, you know, the tannins and things like that. But it's not necessarily that there's anything gross in the water. It's just because of the natural, you know, tannins and things that make the color look like that. So it looks all gross. But it's actually not that bad. I wouldn't drink it, but it's not like disgusting or anything. So there's some pretty cool trails. Lots of, you know, really cool just scenery. It's really beautiful out here, and you know, you've got the falls and everything. Even if you didn't have the falls, just the scenery and the trails themselves are pretty cool. And that squirrel. So that's gonna do it for us here at Amnicon Falls State Park. I am Ricky. That's Adrian. That's Jake.
Hello.
Sniping the waterfalls. Thank you for joining us.